Fernando Alonso is back. Hang on a minute, that's how we started the last one of these. Let's try something else. Fernando Alonso's new deal with Renault marks the return of a blockbuster driver to the grid in 2021. Alonso's return will be one of the major storylines of next season, and thanks to a media call with the Spaniard and Renault team boss Cyril Abiteboul following the announcement, we're already starting to get a clearer picture of what to expect from the third chapter of this partnership. Let's take a look at some of the big questions around the renewal of a once formidable combination and see how many we can answer. And while we're doing that, if you like this video and want to see more from the race, remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Alonso has not sat on the sofa since the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, instead launching himself into more sports car racing, IndyCar, Dakar and esports exploits to varying degrees of success. With little opposition for Toyota, Alonso cleaned up in sports cars, winning Le Mans twice and taking the World Endurance Championship. The fast and complex LMP1 cars will have given Alonso a different perspective and experience that may well enhance his toolset back in F1. But Toyota's dominance of the WEC and Alonso's failure to qualify for last year's Indy 500 means he has pretty much been out of pack racing that defines at least the opening phase of a Grand Prix. Alonso says he's totally ready as a driver, but he will not be in the same groove as if he'd been racing in F1 for the last 2 seasons. The 2020 season is not the only thing hit by the coronavirus pandemic. Its impact will be felt in future years as well, starting with pre-season in 2021. To compensate for a hectic 2020 calendar that is unlikely to conclude until December, and in the interest of cost saving, it has been suggested that next year's pre-season schedule will be even shorter than this year's 6 days of running, and that was already the shortest pre-season ever. So Alonso is going to have very little time to get up to speed in a car that his teammate Esteban Ocon will know very well, because the 2020 cars are being mostly carried over for next year. The carryover of cars means Alonso's midfield competitors, those who aren't shuffling teams anyway, will be dialed in before he even has a chance to get back on track. Or will they? With Ricciardo leaving, and provided there are no contractual hurdles, Renault would surely have little concern bumping him out of the seat for a Friday practice session to help Alonso get accustomed to Renault's car and the team. But Abiteboul doesn't see the point in that, going as far as calling it not a worthwhile investment. F1's rules allowing testing of cars that are at least 2 years old could be a saving grace. Renault showed before the 2020 season opener that it's got the budget and willingness to put an old car on track if there's a benefit. It's acknowledged that that's an option for Alonso too. There are few bigger benefits than making sure your massive signing has a chance to get into the swing of driving an F1 car again. A lot can change in 2 years, but when Alonso was heading for the exit door, he was very aware of the risks associated with a 2021 comeback. Back then, he was talking as if it was a sabbatical for 2019 ahead of a 2020 return or nothing. Yet here we are. Alonso says he's recently posted the best fitness results of his entire career, and he jokes that he's never known a race to be decided by the date of birth on a driver's passport. But joking aside, only 11 drivers have won a Grand Prix at an age older than Alonso will be when he rejoins the grid, and that number comes down to 9 if you discount the 2 Indy 500 winners from the early years of the World Championship. The last time a driver 40 or older won in F1 was 1994, when Nigel Mansell won the Australian Grand Prix for Williams. Despite spending his final 5 years in F1 not winning, Alonso is still remembered as one of the greats. That's how good he was. So is there a risk that this return, if it is steeped in mediocrity because of car or driver, will shift his legacy from a driver who didn't know when to quit to a driver who really should have known when to quit? Or will it enhance his reputation further, with heroic efforts in the midfield such as Azerbaijan in 2018, or being the man to score Renault's first podium since its return, or maybe a first win? Perhaps it will all even out and Alonso will disappear the same way he did back in 2018, but that seems unlikely for a driver with such high expectations. Renault's been a midfield team since it rejoined F1 in 2016, but it hopes a revised technical structure will nail the new car rules for 2022 and vault the team to race-winning form and title contention. But that's optimistic because it requires a big change in Renault's ability to turn potential into results. Alonso will have to go back to sniping for points again in 2021, given Renault started this year struggling at the bottom of the top 10 and is unlikely to be more than fighting for the best of the rest again next year. If Alonso wants to make this worthwhile, he'll need to be patient. Even a 2-year spell at Renault will probably not be long enough to get close to the results he wants. He says he's relaxed and knows what's waiting for him in 2021. He's made his peace with that, but that peace needs to last. Alonso's desire to win the Triple Crown of motorsport will take him to the Indy 500 for the 3rd time in August, although he didn't qualify for his 2nd attempt. Alonso is reuniting with McLaren for his 2020 Indy bid, driving a 3rd car for the team's Arrow McLaren SP outfit. But can Alonso realistically challenge for victory? Coronavirus restrictions mean travelling to America is still difficult, so many unknowns remain regarding his preparations. The stars seem to align next year to make an Indy-Monaco double-up possible because the two events won't clash, but the spread-out format for Indy means Monaco will probably still clash with qualifying for the 500. It's unlikely Alonso will want to sacrifice early momentum in his F1 comeback to head back to America, and if Renault's more competitive in 2022 or 23, he will not want to break up those campaigns to cross the Atlantic. That shuffles Alonso towards his mid-40s, by which time his Indy dream and the Triple Crown could be fading away. Esteban Ocon says he's up for partnering Alonso, who has also had kind words to say about his young 2021 teammate. But a driver like Alonso is a juggernaut who can dominate a team and be a horrible teammate, not necessarily through actions or politics off track despite his reputation, but just through his qualities behind the wheel. Just ask Stoffel Vandoorne what racing alongside Alonso can do for a quality young driver's reputation. If Alonso is quickly back to his old self, he will be difficult for Ocon to beat, and even if Alonso's lagging behind, he has the experience to mould the team around him and the canniness on track to turn a lack of blistering pace into very good results. This could destabilise Ocon at a time when his career should be taking off. He was shunted to the sidelines by Renault's last decision to chase a big-name driver and could slip into the shadows with its latest one. Or perhaps it will be the making of him, a brilliant opportunity to work alongside and learn from one of the great drivers in F1 history and reinforce his own reputation by beating him. This is a tough question to answer, but if you assume Renault had a legitimate shot at Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, Nico Hülkenberg and any other realistically available driver, then Alonso at his peak is still the best option, at least in isolation. When you factor in what it could do to Ocon, Alonso's sometimes fractious relationship with teams and the pressure it puts on Renault to produce, then maybe not. Some of the answers to the previously asked questions in this list will inform the answer to this one. But with what Renault has available at the moment, it has landed the most blockbuster driver, there can be no doubt about that. Renault's adamant this does not mean it has snubbed its own protégés, which is something plenty of critics have suggested. Formula 2 driver Guan Yu Zhou is expected to mount a title challenge this season, and with plenty of backing and the appeal of bringing a Chinese driver to F1, it's hard to see how he could have been faced with a better opportunity to get onto the grid. Renault has admitted Zhou and F2 rookie Christian Lundgaard are talents they rate highly and would have looked at for 2021. But it says the coronavirus pandemic means they have not had the chance to prove they are ready for the final step, and Renault's hand has partly been forced by Ricciardo's early decision to leave for McLaren. With all of that in mind, Alonso is clearly a better option than a rookie straight out of F2. The academy is far from pointless, it's still an opportunity for drivers to improve their skills and observe an F1 team at close quarters, but this does call into question its purpose in terms of how they actually get to F1. With no Renault customer teams on the grid from 2021, their immediate prospects seem limited. So the Alonso move is less a question about the validity of Renault's academy and more about what it can do to provide the final stepping stone in the future. What do you think about Alonso returning with Renault for 2021? Was it the right move? Will it be a success? or is it destined to end in tears? Let us know in the comments, and remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to keep up with more videos from the race.